Hello and welcome to UC Today. My name is Kieran Devlin and today's session is the big UC update for Martello. And for today's session, I am delighted to be joined by Wendy Moore, Vice President of Marketing at Martello. Wendy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kieran. I'm really excited to be here.
Let's kick things off. Wendy, could you please share a little bit about your professional background?
Sure. I've been doing software marketing for over 25 years now. So I've been in the tech space quite a long time. My primary focus for that time though has been around product marketing and market strategy, and specifically in the unified communications, collaboration, and as well as cybersecurity spaces. So prior to joining Martello about 18 months ago, I was with a really large cybersecurity company called Trend Micro, where I was the global VP of product marketing.
Well, it's a very holistic and diverse range of experiences, which naturally positions you nicely for this Martello call. And speaking of your job, can you please tell us a little bit about what aspects of your role that you're most passionate about?
So I just love technology. It's kind of like that puzzle for me, figuring out how it works and how it works for people. And I think that's the part of my job I love best, is really understanding our customers, what their pain points are, what they're struggling with on a day-to-day basis, and then figuring out kind of a story and the tools and communication vehicles that are going to help them to most easily understand the depths of their problem and help them figure out what the best solution is to that problem.
And moving on to Martello specifically, could you please give us your best elevator pitch about Martello?
Sure.
How would you describe your company in a nutshell?
So Martello helps managed service providers and enterprise IT teams get ahead of collaboration issues. We basically deliver, a 7x24 proactive monitoring solution that lets them detect problems faster, often finding them before they impact users, that lets them troubleshoot more quickly, and also lets them to gain insight so they can deliver a really optimal experience and expense and efficiency profile for their collaboration solutions. It really comes down to delivering our users today the best collaboration experience possible.
And again, exploring a bit more into Martello and the business, can you discuss a little bit about the company's history, its
Sure.
presence across the globe, and overall size?
Yeah, so Martello has about 80 employees, and we are a truly global company with employees located North America, Europe, even some in APAC. And essentially, we've been around in business for about 16 years now, and we are publicly traded. And really, our origin story or our genesis comes out of the unified communications space, where we started delivering monitoring solutions for unified communication solutions to help people collaborate via traditional phone systems. And now we've obviously evolved with the market and then the times, and are now focused on the broader enterprise collaboration solutions.
And this is all about being all about Martello, the business and the front-facing business. What about inside Martello? What would you say is unique about Martello's culture?
So I think one of the things that is unique to us is we have been living and breathing that hybrid workplace for a long time. Because we were in the unified communication space, we had, employees around the globe, and we were leveraging technology that allowed us to have remote workers, that allowed us to join up remote offices to communicate easily. So I think it's given us a really unique perspective on the struggles that some organizations that has been newer to are dealing with. And, we've gone through the pain prior to the pandemic of having that hybrid workforce and of having that distributed workforce and making our tools work really well for us. So we have very much focused on using our own solutions and evolving them in a way that we see makes sense. We obviously take a lot of feedback from our customers, but we're living it and breathing it day to day.
And I've had the pleasure of working with you guys for, roughly about a year now, both in various capacities. But so I know some about you guys, I like to think.
Yes, for
But,
sure.
but obviously, it's always terrific to learn more and for our prospective viewers to learn a bit more detail about you guys and how you approach the market and your partner ecosystem and go-to-market strategies.
Yeah, so our primary route to market is via partners, and we're very much focused on managed service providers. We do sell direct, a small part of our business, but we're very heavily focused on the managed service provider because we recognize that when it comes to a collaboration solution, a complete solution has many moving parts, right? And that's kind of the value proposition of our solution, the fact that we can see what's going on with all of those moving parts, whether it's your endpoints or your network or whoever your collaboration provider is, whether it's Microsoft or Zoom, what's happening at their data center, is it up or down? So we really provide those service providers that have an expertise in communications and collaboration, and are the ones who are bringing together complete solutions. We provide them with that oversight layer that lets them basically generate new revenues, because they sometimes will develop entirely new higher value added services. So they'll incorporate us into services that are specific to Microsoft Teams rooms, for example, or into services that are hybrid, for example. We're seeing more and more customers wanting to use Zoom for external meetings, webinars, collaboration, and use Microsoft Teams for their internal collaboration. So service providers are finding opportunities there. And the thing that the service providers all have in common, regardless of their services, is that they need to ensure that those services are being delivered with a high level of quality. And then if there are problems, which we all know there will be at some point, that they have a very effective and efficient way of dealing with those problems and resolving them. We see service providers increasing their ARR with our solutions by adding new types of services. But we also see plenty of service providers who are looking for ways to create more margin. The collaboration space traditionally has pretty slim margins, and they're looking for ways to value add their services by differentiating them with better, higher quality services, but also by making their teams more efficient. So their operations teams, helping them to resolve issues more quickly, helping them to proactively identify problems so that they can be resolved before a large number of their users are impacted. So, that's where we find our managed service providers are loving our solution, is it helps them address kind of both ends of the equation, the revenue side, but also the profitability side and the margin. So.
And I guess my next question is married to that one in a sense. You already outlined about those service providers and MSPs especially, but who typically buys your products and services? I guess if there was a bit more detail within the service providers and end users framework. And what would you say is your ideal tech buyer persona? Or is it because it's so holistic what you guys do, or is it quite literally every organization around?
Well, that's a great question. We are very horizontal in that we don't tend to have a very big vertical focus, though we have seen great traction in some verticals like professional, legal, and financial services, where they're using collaboration to deliver their product to market, essentially, right? So we typically target from an end customer perspective. We target geographically distributed organizations with a minimum of 5 to 10 sites within their location. Often a large percent of the organization is remote. And this tends to translate into enterprises with greater than 1,000 users. And essentially our MSPs are targeting those types of customers as well. And the buyer in those enterprises tends to be a more senior IT type buyer who is tasked with delivering collaboration services. So they might very specifically be focused on collaboration or modern workplace solutions, or they might have a broader IT preview, or purview, I should say. But essentially they are leveraging us to ensure that the services that they deliver are up to snuff and meeting the needs of their customers.
And we've touched on Martello's products and services throughout this conversation, but I think it's time to delve a little deeper. What features would you say makes your guys' solutions particularly relevant in today's business environment?
Yeah, so you hear a lot these days about making the shift from reactive to proactive IT. Every IT organization has one problem after another coming at them that they're trying to deal with, right? And it tends to be when you're reacting to them, they can tend to spiral out of control. They take a lot longer to deal with. So I'd say like our number one thing that customers are using us for is proactive monitoring. So we have a capability called synthetic testing, which essentially allows us to test user behaviors and test the user experience using a robot. And so essentially that robot acts as a user and will launch a Teams meeting. It'll send a message. It'll try to share its screen. It will do all of these user behaviors so that we can measure them and see how is it performing and get a true view on what is that experience like for the end user. So proactive monitoring with synthetic testing, I'd say is one of the number one things because it lets IT teams detect problems usually before a large number of users are impacted. But also one of the other things that we do, the challenges I mentioned earlier when it comes to collaboration, is there are so many different things that impact its performance, from your users running an old version of a client, to a switch tipped over on your network, to your Wi-Fi signal not being good, to oftentimes we see the service provider goes down, like a Microsoft outage or what have you. And we give you that end-to-end visibility right from the user across the network, across the ISP network, right to the data center, so that you are able to see everything that is happening there and very quickly hone in on what is the root cause when a problem does arise. The other thing which we find customers are really appreciating, tend to see a lot more outages these days from major service providers, whatever type of SaaS providers that we have out there. And the big problem is when they all of a sudden get reports in their organization that Teams is down, for example, they don't know what the cause is. So they get to work trying to troubleshoot it and figure out what's going on. Well, if it's because the Microsoft service is down, they're wasting their time troubleshooting. They could be better served to basically be implementing backup plans and letting their users know there's a problem. And one of our biggest things that we deliver is we give you an early warning of Microsoft outages, usually about an hour before Microsoft even acknowledges that there's a problem. We're able to tell you that, hey, there's a Microsoft outage. Don't waste your time doing the troubleshooting. These 4 offices of yours are all out because of this outage, and we'll let you know when they come back online.
And what would you say Martello's typical implementation strategy looks like? And how do you ensure ongoing support and customer success post-implementation? I know this is something from covering you guys that you guys take very, very seriously and take a lot of pride in.
Absolutely. Our services arm are included. We include the deployment and implementation of our solutions. And that's really critical because we want our customers to get up and running quickly. We have a very intuitive solution, but it's always easier to have an IT team kind of shadow you for a bit while you deploy and configure and get them up and running. So that's included with all of our deployments, that upfront implementation service. And we have a customer service team that basically, meets on a quarterly basis with our customers to make sure that everything's performing as well as it should be, and that they are taking advantage of, all the new features that we're delivering as well. So we take this very, very seriously. And this extends into when we bring on new MSP partners as well. We actually work with them on their first 3 customer deployments. So it moves from them shadowing us to them being much more self-sufficient over those 3 first deployments so that our MSP partners can be successful as well. Because ultimately, this is all about making our customers and our partners successful and making that happen as quickly as possible.
And speaking of those very customers and partners, what would you say are the main topics that are currently dominating your conversations with them? What would you say they're most curious or interested about? And what challenges are they discussing with you most seriously?
So I'd say that the challenges that they discuss has really very quickly honed in on those what we call high value use cases. Things like Teams rooms, where they're making significant investments in infrastructure to ensure that there are great collaboration meeting spaces available across their organization. And then other things like Teams Phone, where they are trying to move from having, siloed telephony systems and collaboration solutions to having basically all in one, their collaboration platform, cover all of their collaboration needs, including their telephony. And the reason why these are becoming so front and center is because these are really costly and complex investments. So in the case of a Teams room, usually they range between $3,000 and let's say $60,000 on average to equip a Teams room with all of the right equipment. But I've seen them go much higher than that in some really tricked out rooms for sure. And they need to be sure that they're getting that return on investment. And they're making these investments because they know that collaboration is so critical to their organization. So they really want to understand how they can be on top of it, ensuring that they are getting the most out of their solution and not having to worry about, somebody unplugged something in one of the main team's meeting rooms, so nobody's using the collaboration solution, right? We let them stay on top of that to make sure that everything is always functioning as it should and let them to get ahead of that. When it comes to Teams Phone, that's a really interesting one. As I said, many organizations are now moving in that direction because they want to get down to a single siloed solution. But for that, they've oftentimes got a business model that has been built around telephony. So they are doing things like hunt groups and auto attendance and overhead paging that is built into their business processes all around telephony. So to make that transition to Teams can be very complex to make sure that they're getting all of that business value. And as such, they're looking for usually an MSP partner to be their main guide in ensuring them that they are actually making the transition in the best way possible. But they also want, there to be dial tone like there always has been, right? Users are not going to put up with picking up the phone and not being able to get a line. So that's why they're leveraging solutions like Martello's to ensure that they're always available, always on, and performing very well those telephony and Teams rooms solutions that they are making those big investments in.
Terrific. And we've already discussed to an extent the types of problems that your technology is solving for customers and the service providers that are enabling them. I think naturally a particularly interesting angle is how have your guys' customers' needs changed over the years, and how have you addressed those needs as they've evolved?
So it's really interesting. A lot of what obviously drove the big push to these collaboration platforms was the pandemic, right? And I swear I wasn't going to talk about that anymore, but it is kind of the genesis of all of this, right? So about 5 years ago now, that all began, and organizations rushed to get some tooling in place to support their users working from home. And they got that in place, and then they moved on. And now they're taking a look back and realizing how important that collaboration is to their business. Now, even though, people are oftentimes back in the office or at least in a hybrid work mode, they're recognizing when that collaboration is disrupted because there's a performance problem with your collaboration solution, that has a big impact on the top and the bottom line. Without that, your employees aren't doing their job. All you need to do is look at Twitter when there's a big Microsoft outage, right? And you see everyone go, oh, long weekend starting early because Teams is down and I can't do my job without it, right? So they recognize that if there's any kind of pain in that collaboration process, it ultimately hurts their productivity, it hurts their customer relationships, and it hurts their bottom line. So they're much more cognizant of that than they were, I'd say, even a couple of years ago.
And I think this second to last question is possibly the one I've been most excited to hear your thoughts about, Wendy. How does Martello approach innovation? And can you please explain your process for gathering feedback and idea generation?
So it's an interesting one because it is such an all-encompassing function within our organization, that intelligence gathering to drive our innovation. We use continuous discovery. It's kind of a practice we talk about a lot around here, where inputs can come from anywhere, and anybody who is customer facing or market facing is expected to be feeding back into the team what they are hearing in the market, because we want to intimately understand those problems that our customers are having so that we can look to innovative ways to solve those problems and help them deal with them better. So, we have a customer success team, we have our product management team and our sales team, us in marketing. We're all talking to different stakeholders in the market, but we're making sure that all of that comes back in to our offering. And we have, a process within Jira where everything is tracked that comes back in, and we have regular meeting and communication to see how we can get the most out of that feedback into the process. Because we really believe that where innovation is going to come from is recognizing a unique customer problem, but also recognizing maybe a shift in the market, whether it's an infrastructure shift or some sort of business shift, that's what's going to facilitate us to come up with a really unique and innovative solution for our customers. So we're always driving towards that innovation.
Terrific. Well, I think it's a particularly exciting time to be a Martello customer and partner. One final question before I let you go, Wendy. Looking through your specific lens, what do you see as the biggest opportunity in our industry right now?
So I'm loath to say this because I believe it is such a popular answer these days, but it's because of the gravity of it, and that's AI. AI, I think everybody is grappling with what the possibilities are. The art of the possible is unreal. But when I'm thinking about AI, I'm thinking about it from that IT team's perspective, how to do their job in a much more automated and efficient and effective fashion. And so looking at AI as a way to take, maybe your first level support person who's trying to help somebody with the problem and turn them into a third level support person because you've given them the right information at their fingertips at the right time with the answer how to solve problems. And I think, there's not too many organizations right now that aren't deeply delving into AI to see how it can give them competitive advantage in the market. And I really see us as being no different there.
Terrific. No, I completely agree. I feel like every time everyone's wary about mentioning AI, but we can't get away from it. It is the fundamental game changer here, and it is fundamentally exciting for all the reservations people
It is.
have. I think that's all we've got time for today, but it's been a terrific session. So thank you, Wendy, for being here and telling us all about Martello.
Well, thanks so much, Kieran. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you. And if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share on social media, and we'll see you next time. I've been Kieran Devlin of UC Today. Thanks for watching.